Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and thanks to the fellows over at ToyDojo.com, I'm taking a look at another third-party transforming robot line, this time from newcomer Ark Studios. This is their VIP, very intriguing piece, Disguiserz line, debuting with 3 Datsun-like auto robots named Specter, Peacekeeper, and Silverstorm. And as I said in the Speedo and Gartanel review, I'm really into the idea of unofficial independent releases at a pocket-sized scale, so I've been following Ark Studios' development updates on these guys for a few months. Getting my hands on these test shot pieces came about with a lot of anticipation. Properly Legend Cyberverse in scale, this pseudo-Datsun trio have got some pretty smooth-looking vehicle modes. The curvatures all feel fairly on target, the paint jobs are clean and simple without missing anything that feels key, and the hubcaps are silver. Unfortunately, Silverstorm suffers from, all-spark blue windshields that feel intensely out of place. Peacekeeper's got blue windows too, but they're toned down enough to not be distracting. Silverstorm should have gotten darkened glass like Specter. Speaking of Specter, he's got an additional front bumper bulk and a rear spoiler to set him apart as a racing pseudo-Datsun. The bumper piece pegs in very securely and can be removed, so can the rear spoilers. In fact, they'll abandon ship quite readily as their square peg connections are pretty loose out of the box. Hopefully that's just a symptom of being a test shot. While Specter's the only one to come with spoiler pieces, all 3 of these guys include removable front bumper chunks if you want Silverstorm or Peacekeeper to look a little more armored up. Peacekeeper also has a unique light bar piece, what with his being a police car. Silverstorm has nothing unique, including neither a light bar nor rear spoiler pieces, or anything else the other 2 don't already have. Poor guy. All 3 Disguisers can mount their guns and shoulder launchers on their roofs and hoods, all Masterpiece Datsun style. The connections are secure and they look legit silly, just like the Masterpieces. These guys are Cyberverse simple to transform, but involve a parts-forming rear bumper. No, it doesn't go anywhere, it just attaches and gets set to one side. We'll talk about that in a bit. Oh, we will talk about that. Everything else is super easy. In fact, it's so easy that I wish there were 2 more steps to clean up the bot mode torso a little further. The very intriguing pieces robot modes are, at a glance, pretty nice takes on the Datsun Autobots, moving their door bulk to their biceps and giving them more clearly defined feet. I really like the little rectangular wedge foot design, though I wish there was a heel piece to finish it off. The quality of the sculpt is a little soft and simple, but as a debut effort, it's adequate. However, from the side, 2 huge problems come into view. The front of the car mode is jutting enormously forward off of their pectorals, and the driver and passenger side windows are jutting slightly less enormously off their backs. The front of the car should have slid back to tighten the torso, and the windows should have folded down. Not only do I find this very disappointing, but I also can't tell why such an oversight would happen with the looser budget of an unofficial piece. And to top it off, those windows are sticking off the back via really thin plastic connections that look like they're just waiting to snap off from a bad fall. You can arm these guys up with their shoulder cannons, which are uniquely sculpted for each character. Their handheld rifles are all identical, but I don't mind. What I do mind is what happened with those rear bumper pieces. You see, each one is actually part of a shield accessory which contains a melee stick for whacking bad guys upside the head. This feels like a fairly clever throwback to Alternator's Prowl's weaponry, so I kinda dig it on Peacekeeper. On Silverstorm and Specter, it just looks out of place. I mean, at least Specter's shield has this ridiculous giant 38 painted on it for no real reason. But these shield baton combos are 3 components apiece and cause these legend scale toys to have to parts form for no good reason. I don't understand why the rear bumper had to be stitched onto all of this. There are other ways to attach a shield under a car for storage, like pegs. And there's room on the kneecaps for split bumper knee pads. In fact, as it is, it just looks like something's missing from there. Finally, each of these guys comes with an alternate head, on which their mouths are sculpted going, oh, perhaps even, ah! It's a simple little ball joint connection to pop and swap, but it accomplishes so little, I just don't see the point. I'm only focusing on this guy because the race car one has those spoiler bits that fall off, and the silver one is just kind of loose in a lot of places, whereas this one isn't. These are test shots, so that all might change once they're in production, and most of their joints are ball joints, so even if that doesn't change, it's all pretty easy to fix. This guy's got a ball jointed neck, and I'm just get these things out of the way, because they get in the way of everything when you move his head around. But here, he can move his head left and right. He can kind of look up a little bit. Most of the time, when you think you have him doing something amazing, you're actually just pulling his head off the joint. So, you know, don't try to be too amazing, or you might just cry. His shoulders, their mounting point can move back and forth like this thanks to the transformation, and then there is a ball socket joint with a cut so that they can go out about that far. There is a simple elbow hinge here with 90 degrees or so of motion. Sadly, no bicep swivel. I guess I kind of see it because of how they decided to opt for the functionality of the transformation. Namely, this thing is literally just pegged into a hole. So, that's sort of a bummer, but this helps. Like, having this forward and backward motion isn't a substitute, but it's a thing. The wrist joints are on ball joints, and it means they can swivel mostly. They can also go inwards if you want. Why? I don't know. And I find they're a little hinky. So there's something that definitely, hopefully, is a lot tighter on the finished piece. There's no waist joint on this guy because his waist is basically a solid block connected to this big chunk of car. And this big chunk of car and these things up here, this is all Bummersville because it's a really lousy reason to not have a waist joint. That takes away from this guy a lot, especially compared to other smaller unofficial Transformer-y toys on the market. The hips are on a ball joint connection, which does have a cut in the top, so he can get about, you know, a 3.5 to 4 on the Van Damme scale. Forward and backward motion is fine, though. He can totally, like, just hop through the air like a happy little boy. His knees are simple hinges, which are, you know, double joint crunchable due to the transformation, so that's kind of cool. His ankles have no posability. Like, they fold like this for the transformation, but you want to always have him folded out as far as possible because he literally has no heels, so he's a bit of a chore to get balanced properly. If he's carrying weapons, especially if they disengage his wrist from his arms, those can help counterbalance him, but you need to have these feet forward as much as possible just to have the best ability to get him to not be teetering around. It's definitely something that is, I would call it, to be kind, a learning experience for those who made this toy, that you gotta have heels on legs that are two-sided. It just doesn't work otherwise very well. So this guy's posability is there's parts of it that are cool. The combination of no waist, no biceps, and no heels definitely drags him way down, and he does not really impress all that much, especially if you have messed with other things in this particular sub-niche. I can say, though, that these are pretty durable, because while I was at TFcon Chicago, I was not kind to them, and while, you know, they have popped apart here and there in my hurling at people when they were trying to play games for charity and saying, here is a very intriguing piece. These things never actually broke. The ball joint connections would come apart, but they'd always go back together again. I think it's probably because, these guys are so light that it's not really possible for them to build up enough kinetic energy to shatter. But that said, I remain worried about the tiny piece of plastic connecting these windows that should have folded down. Anyway, the very core of this figure design is a fun and playable little Datsun that, with a bicep swivel added in, would be a full package pocket companion. Even without that, I love how much expression there is in the shoulders and legs. The idea of budget-increased legend-scale G1 toys is exactly along the lines of the pocket-size trend I am hardcore digging from the unofficial scene. But Ark Studios' first delivery is misguided and derailed constantly, missing a number of qualities I would consider key ideas to consider, while including ridiculous nonsense like a parts leprosy-inducing riot shield and pointless alternate head sculpts. Those things are not only fluff, they are additional parts count and paint application, while the meat of the figure has an underdesigned and oversimplified torso, no swivels at the biceps or waist, and worst of all, no clear reason why most any of that is absent in the first place. The waist joint, maybe, but everything else? These guys are, after their pre-order listings were corrected, price comparable to DX9's Warren Pocket 2-pack and Iron Factory's Turrets and Manacle set, on a figure-to-figure basis. And Ark Studios' Datsuns simply don't match up. They've definitely got more detailed and numerous paint apps, but that is it! They feel more frail, their engineering falls short, and their accessory ideas beyond their firearms are misguided and damaging to the finished pieces. As much as I wanted these to end up being fun little G1ers, they're middling at best, and at worst they are outright outclassed by two other similar releases from Iron Factory and DX9. Ark Studios need to rethink their priorities, ditch the fluff, and not compromise the meat and potatoes of their next releases in this line. I want them to improve because the concept is so sound, but this first attempt was absolutely not. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus. Thanks again to Toy Dojo for letting me bookend my hype and interest in the very intriguing pieces, for better or for worse. To finish this off, let me read you some excerpts from the bottom of the Disguiserz boxes. Under warnings, do not hit or stab others with weapons contained while playing within. Do not get your finger clamped by any joint of this toy. Do not violently swing or break this toy. To prevent injury, do not stick your finger into this toy's gaps. To prevent suffocation, do not cover your head with the plastic packing bag. Under caution, to prevent this toy from tipping inside the packaging or its parts falling off, do not squeeze this toy from above. To prevent this toy from tipping, do not display it in an unstable environment or in an unstable position. When handling, hold onto its main body part rather than other smaller parts. When transforming this toy, due to our production standards, its paint may fall off. Placing this toy on or near furniture made of resin may cause its paint to fall off or to be absorbed by the furniture. And finally, at the bottom, Ark Studios strives to produce the best quality products. However, depending on the specific time of your purchase, even the same type of items may vary in terms of the toy itself, packaging, illustrations, etc. We appreciate your understanding. Ages 15+.